Like, to me, I just never thought about it. It was just instinctual. It's like,
Right.
of course I'm going to write a song. If
Yeah,
they were
yeah.
falling out of me when I was young, and they aren't falling out of me now, and maybe that's okay. Like I have to truly like give it up. I have to be like, maybe I won't write another song again. That's okay.
Welcome to Church Jams Now, the podcast where three former youth group kids and current music nerds deep dive into Christian music from the 90s and 2000s. I, of course, am your co-host, Kylan Savage. With me, as always, is Mr. TJ Smith.
Man, it would be a crime to not show up on this episode.
Oh, there you go. Classic TJ. And we have beautiful producer Josh.
Hey, I was wondering what TJ was going to say for this
I know.
intro. Yep.
Yep. But that felt like a good interplay, right?
No, it was
like
good.
now that
Oh, yeah.
You picked
Yeah.
up on it right away.
I
Yeah.
did. But more importantly than you guys, we have a guest this week. From the classic crime, from the vocal few, we have Matt MacDonald. Matt, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thanks for having me, guys.
We are so excited. I had something funny I was going to say, and it instantly left my brain. So, thank you, Matt, so much. We're so excited. So, should we just jump right into it? Is everyone ready? Yeah, we've already been talking. We're old friends, so let's just get right to the meat of it. So, Matt, I always like to start, like I told you off mic, I like to start with origin stories. I'm really fascinated because our show is very specifically about Christian music of the 90s and 2000s. And we talk a lot about, tooth and nail bands from the mid 2000s. That's kind of like our coming of age. Like those were, big bands for us. But I want to know how you kind of got into that scene and what kind of music you listened to growing up. Like, were you always a church kid? Did this come later?
No, I was born in Vancouver, British Columbia. My mom was American. We moved across the border when I was 10. But I didn't have a lot of musical influences outside of the radio growing up. We moved to a small town called Lyndon, Washington, which is really conservative town, very Dutch, and they didn't have there wasn't a music scene or anything. So all I listened to was the radio growing up. Obviously, my parents they were ex-hippies who found fundamentalist evangelical church, non-denominational type thing, and raised us in that. But they still had their music. They would play us, Beach Boys and Moody
Nice.
Blues and the Stones and Jimi Hendrix. My dad would play. My dad was not musical at all, totally tone deaf, but he was a big music fan, so he would play stuff like that.
A taste.
And then on the radio, yeah, well, he would, yeah, he pretended to know what he was talking about and was very opinionated about it.
That's such a dad move.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's just classic dad.
Yeah, and we took piano lessons growing up. I learned how to play acoustic guitar in 5th grade. My teacher did it for the music portion of our class. He had 26 acoustic guitars strung around the room, and we would just play American folk and pop songs from the 60s and 70s.
That's cool.
And
cool.
so that's kind of how I learned how to play guitar. And I came home and told my mom I liked that. I liked playing guitar. And so she brought home a guitar and played me her songs. And then I was able to practice. It was just a nylon string classical. But that's kind of how I learned guitar. And, I didn't really think much of playing anything other than just what was in that music book.
Can you give us some examples of what at this point, however
Sure,
much later,
sure.
what sticks out?
Like Proud Mary, Sloop John B,
Yeah.
John Denver, just stuff it was just classic
Right.
American folk and rock.
Nice.
Love it.
You learn your whatever 7 or 8 chords, and that's kind of what I had. That was my background as far as playing music. And I just liked what was on the radio. It was pop music when I was younger, and then I discovered the alternative radio stations, and when I moved across the border, I moved in I think I was 12 when Kurt Cobain died, but Nirvana and the Seattle scene like really dominated the radio back then.
Right.
I also had one of those Columbia House subscriptions where you could get like 20 CDs for $1, and then they send your parents to collections. So, you know, I remember getting like Green Day, Dookie, The Offspring,
Nice.
you know, that kind of like hard rock or punk rock stuff. But I didn't really, you know, like you don't really fall in love with music until you're kind of like mid-teens, right? That's when it
Right.
starts to really matter. Like you're
Yeah.
experiencing all these changes in your body and in your social life, and everything is new, and songs kind of tend to speak to all these emotions that you're feeling for the first time, and they give, you know, words and music to those experiences and enrich your life. And so probably in the late 90s is when I really started like, you know, being like, wow, music is important to me. I was like 15 when I think Third Eye Blind Self-Titled came out.
Nice.
And I remember just being like blown away by the lyrical, rhythmic rhyming, and that it was so catchy and so pop. And I was in band, so I understood time signatures. Like I played trumpet in high school, but just like knowing that there was like time signature changes in this pop song kind of blew my mind. Like, wow, he's really doing like a 5/4 or like a 7/4, or, you know, and just realizing that like pop music didn't have to be stupid.
Yeah.
And you know, right around graduating high school, that's when I got into like Jimmy Eat World. It was like a huge the Bleed American, Clarity first, but the Bleed American came out like right around when I graduated, and like I was dating my now wife at the time, and it was like, you know, formative memories. So I always liked catchy songs. I didn't know anything about Tooth and Nail back in, like, I had friends because we were in a like pretty conservative town.
Right.
My parents were never like, they didn't encourage us to like go after like the Christian rock industry. I think the church that they went to was kind of like, that's all bad too.
Right.
But they also weren't very, we had a big family. There was 8 kids, you know, 2 adopted, and my parents had 6. And so they were too busy to really police our music habits anyways. But there was no, like, the church I grew up in didn't have like a youth group that was cool and like trend setting or anything. So all I'd ever heard of was MXPX. And that's because a friend of mine was like, listen to this, you know, Slowly Going the Way of the Buffalo album or whatever. And I just remember that, you know, just the rebellion of it I liked. But I didn't know anything about like,
Did you
like
know that
Christian
they were
rock or,
semi-local to you? When did that?
yeah,
when did you find out?
well, the Move to Bremerton song,
Right?
I think it's where
explains
Bremerton
it.
Oh,
was.
hey, I know that.
Yeah, you know, there's lore and
That's
stuff, but like I liked that record, but it wasn't even like I liked Blink-182 better, you know, like
Right.
and it was like more rebellious even, you know.
Right.
So and you know, as a teenager, you just like you latch on to those anthems of rebellion because you're busy, you know, breaking off from your tradition and your parents and trying to find out who you are, and that gives you the juice to do it. So I would say, yeah, I was not very aware of like Christian rock or Christian music. I didn't like right around at the end of high school, I went to like a youth group where there was more of that kind of like influence, but I never really kind of fit in. And I finally, when I moved to Seattle to go to audio production school, that's when I kind of like found indie rock music for myself. And that was like in the form of like Drive Through Records, the Long Island like emo scene, like Brand New and Taking Back Sunday.
Yeah, dude.
I think the first like kind of like screamo band that I liked was like the EP from Finch.
Yes.
So
yes.
I always was a sucker for like 4 chords, 4 on the floor, belt it out, scream a little bit, but
dude,
it's mostly
I brought
melodic.
Up on a relatively recent episode, I brought up what it is to burn. There's a song. Was it on? Oh, it was
think
on
it was Salt in the Snow.
Salt in the Snow.
Yeah.
Oh, there's probably some Finch influence.
I
on our old
compared it
stuff,
to
for
What
sure.
It Is to Burn by Finch,
Yeah.
and these motherfuckers had no idea what I was talking about.
It's true.
So
Well, the funny thing
I
is-
feel validated.
You're speaking Colin's language, man.
You would never hear my influence on a song, probably. Well, maybe. But that Justin wrote the music to that song, Salt in the Snow.
Nice.
And Justin was very derivative in his... He's like, I like that song. I'm going to take
Let's
it.
just do
Let's
that
lift
song.
it.
Yeah. He's like, just rip it off. Yeah.
Why not?
So that was probably the case. But everybody back then was we were all into the same music. Like you can hear, like on our first record on Tooth and Nail, Albatross, you can hear like Coheed and Cambria. You can hear the Used, you can hear Jimmy Eat World, you can hear, all that stuff because that's what we were listening to.
I will say I was trying to tell somebody like describe y'all's sound who didn't know you, and Jimmy Eat World was the first band I mentioned, and I think I said the Used as well. So there's something in the water. I
There's
guess
something, yeah.
it's getting through.
Yeah. It's like brand new, the Used, maybe even like Foo Fighters, even though I was never a huge fan, but like the yelliness of the vocals is
I
pretty
can hear it.
Yeah.
similar. But I always just liked pop. Like I just liked catchy things. I grew up listening to the radio. I liked the hits. And so I never while I loved these indie bands, I loved them because they were catchy and they were poppy and they
Yes.
had hooks, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I always just went for when I wrote. I was like, I want a hook. I want something that's going to explode in the chorus. And that's
Right.
Yes.
I met the band when I was 19 and that's all the stuff that we were into. And so that's like, it's weird. If you could go back to what you were into when you were 19 and like still be doing it, it's kind of weird. It's like I'm 40 now and I have to sing songs I wrote when I was 19 and believe it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So it is a little weird, but that's what happens. You kind of get like trapped in your quote unquote success.
Yeah, we were just talking about this on an episode that's actually coming out this week that I'm editing. We talked with Ben Soy from A Place for Owls. We were talking about Pedro the Lion's first record and how Dave Bazan has, still playing some of those early super Christian songs, and just that idea of like a song, as a songwriter, do you choose to abandon these songs
Part of your discography.
because you don't feel that way about them anymore, or do you adapt? Do you evolve? How do you work through that process? And I think it's different for everyone.
Well, there's periods in my life where I was like, I don't want to play The Fight anymore. It's so cheesy to me. It's so cringe. And then we did in 2016, we did a 10-year anniversary tour, and I just loved playing The Fight every night. It was fun again.
Yeah.
I was I had avoided it for so many years that I was tapping back into the kid who wrote it.
Right.
There was enough distance where it's this doesn't represent me anymore, but it's fun to play the role.
Yeah. It's fun to
you're stepping into a
remember
persona essentially.
Yeah.
Right.
You're being your younger self while you're playing
and that persona no longer threatens me. Or threatens to hold me back, or threatens to be the thing that I that I identify with because I'm so far removed from it. So I think there's some of that, but some artists are so prescient, so young. I don't know how Dave Bazan could not like the whole EP or whatever.
Right.
That was the first time in '97. I think my brother brought me a burned CD of. Excuse me, I'm dying from COVID.
No, Matt.
I'm over. Yeah, but he brought me this burned CD of that EP, and I remember it was so loose and so sloppy and so slow. It just lagged. The drums were just behind every time.
Yeah.
And then there was that song "Almost There," which is about heroin addiction. I love songs about addiction and struggle and real things.
Yeah.
You don't say.
I think we've picked up on that a little bit.
Yep.
I love that stuff, but that was the first time I heard when they're screaming over top of this really slow indie rock song, and I was screaming is crazy. You can just
You can do that?
you can just scream and that. That's all the emotion all jammed in together into this one spot. And
Right.
yeah, I know. I remember being blown away. Like, who can write like this? This is so good. And of course, he was like, 20.
Yeah, so young.
He was
Yeah.
22 when that first like record came out,
Yeah.
which
Crazy.
is wild. I talked about that. I think I cut a lot of that out of our conversation because I just kept saying over
You
and over
kept
again,
bringing
like,
it up.
I'm so mad. I'm so mad, like in the best way. He was 22, and I was just like a shithead at 22. I wasn't doing anything that good.
I think in some ways it's better. It's like easier to be young and creative and like dancing with the muse. And if you have, if you have the talent, and especially with writing, like young writers can write really good. Like there's some things that I wrote that I still think is good. And then there's some things I wrote that I'm like, ooh, it's a little cringe. Like
Right.
I probably
Yeah.
wouldn't do that now. But
Right.
good for that guy. He did it,
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I'm
not
glad he
mad.
did.
I'm
it.
not mad, but
Yeah, what are some of the ones you're still like, oh, I really think I nailed it on this one, that years later you're like, there's still stuff coming back to
It
you, I
holds
guess.
up.
Yeah. What are some examples?
yeah, there's a lot. There's a few. I mean, I'm not like a huge fan of the song, but I wrote it when I was literally 20, and we recorded it like 6 times after that because people just loved the song. But it was "Who Needs Air," which is like just a 6/8 anthem, very simple song.
Right.
But like I don't cringe necessarily when I hear it. But I think on that record, the first record, "We All Look Elsewhere," I think is probably some of my favorite lyrics. And it was, most of the time my favorite songs are like the album tracks that are like buried in the in
Right.
the back half of the album.
Yeah.
But yeah, that one's like I don't like The Coldest Heart is kind of cringe to me. But it was supposed to just be like a catchy song, and that's what
Right.
it was. It did what it was supposed to do.
Right.
But beyond that, it's not like deep or meaningful.
Yeah, dude, I get that. Sometimes a song's just a song, man.
Yeah.
Hey,
just,
it-
just a
Yeah.
good song.
Yeah, it caught a lot of people's ears, including
Yeah.
I think that was probably either that or The Fight was the first one I heard. I mean, it did what it's supposed
Yeah.
to do. It exposed
Yeah,
you to new
exactly.
people. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's your job when you start out, I guess.
Exactly. Well,
sure.
Talking about younger artists versus older artists, I feel brings up a relatively good transition to. I want to, like, before we kind of deep dive into other stuff, I want to talk about Grim Age for a little bit. Because that just came out.
Thanks for not
this last
calling
year.
it Grimmage.
Grimmage.
Oh, is that
A lot of
happening?
people have
no.
been calling it Grimmage. I was like, there's like a
Grimmage.
dot right between those two, so you don't put them together.
So you-
We did everything we
Grim
could to
age.
help you guys.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
still.
that's what you get.
Yeah, so I want to talk. I want to talk about, like, okay, so how old were you when the Classic Crime, like when that first record came out?
So we recorded that record in 2005, and I turned 22, and then we got signed. And then like 3 months after, I got married, we got signed, and we went and recorded that record all in the summer of 2005.
Big year.
Okay.
I feel like we
Yeah.
hear that from artists. Like, I feel like you're the second or third person
Yeah, that's true.
that we've heard that's like, I got married,
I got married.
and we did this,
Yeah.
and then we
that,
got
and
signed.
Then it got signed. Yeah. So I'm okay. So now I just want to talk about this new record, which I love, by the way. It made my
Thank
top
you.
10 list of the year.
Oh, nice.
So we're gonna do a Patreon episode.
You listen
actually
to
after this.
10 records a year?
Well,
That's a
He
lot.
only picks 10.
I only picked 10.
Yeah.
You just beat out the covers album that T-Pain did, but it was that much better.
Nice.
T-Pain. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, so I want to talk about, like,
Royalty.
continuing the same band, but it's not really the same band because you as a person have changed. So I want to talk about your process of making Grim Age and making that record, and including what I think is the first. Is this the first album that has, excuse me, bad words?
No.
I mean,
No,
I don't
you
think
don't
so.
Yeah.
How to
There's
be
definitely a
how to be
goddamn.
Oh yeah.
and some
Okay.
Stolly
how to
Water,
be
yeah.
how to be human has a lyric that says, "Have I fucked up my head with all the books
that's so
that I
good.
read?"
Right there, it is.
Oh,
yeah,
that's
I
right,
knew there was,
that's right.
there was
Um,
something else kind of dicey.
Yeah, that was the first one where I was like, I'm not going to censor myself anymore. I'm a grown adult.
Yep.
I make music not for children, for adults.
Right.
So I'm
so
like,
funny.
what am I
Yeah.
doing? It's like I'm not on a label anymore that is going to censor me.
Right.
So why am I
I get it.
self-censoring? It feels
Yes.
like you do that when you're on a label, you self-censor, but
Right.
Sure.
Well, because
you,
you're also
you shouldn't have to. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we went through that even with this podcast. I feel like we were like cutting out all like curse words and stuff because we have we had this sort of idea of like who our audience was,
Mm-hmm.
and then at a certain point, it's like, well, no, like this show or any sort of like creative expression is like supposed to be who you are. And so,
Yeah,
like,
the whole point-
so who gives a fuck if I
whole
say
point
fuck?
of-
Like,
The whole point of making art is to be your true self and to express
Right.
your true self. And to me, that's like my approach since day one was I just need an avenue to express myself.
right.
Yeah.
Why I needed that? Well, there's probably a lot of stuff in my childhood where I didn't get
Yeah.
the right response back from the world,
Right.
and, from culture, from my family, and I needed to get a positive response. I needed for people to see that there was more to me than met the eye.
And art gives you that opportunity, right? It's an avenue to
You get
expression
to
and connection.
expose it. You go, there's more here, and I'm going to mine the depths of it and bring it to you, and hopefully you say, "Yay, that's nice."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because everything else I'm doing is getting bad reactions from the world.
Right,
So
right.
like this is the first time I've done something and they like it, so I have to do more of it.
Ah, man,
Follow
you're
it.
speaking my language. You're
Chase it.
speaking my language.
Yeah. But like that's all I ever wanted to do, and so when we got together as a band, I was like, okay, well, how do I do this? How do I do more of this? Like how can I just keep expressing myself for as long as there's something to express?
Yeah.
And that the band was a vehicle for that. It was never like the band was never like a concept. Like we weren't like Machiavellian about it. We weren't like plotting and scheming and trying and doing careerist things like we kind of did when we had managers, and they would
Right.
try to get us to plot and scheme and think about our image and think about things I didn't care about at all. All I wanted was an avenue to express myself, and like I was like, whatever I got to do, we got to sign to a label, fine, as long as I have money to make the record.
Essentially,
Right.
it was a means to an end for you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's always what it was, and so that's why I keep doing it, because
Yeah.
people still fund the ability to do it,
Right.
and I somehow haven't ran out of things to say.
Yeah.
Which we love.
I fear that I am actually running out of things to say. I'm not like I won't touch my guitar for like 6 months. Like I that's the way I create. I go away for a while and I'm like, maybe I'll never write a song again. I'm in that phase right now where I'm like, maybe I'll never write a song again. What does that feel like to me? Am I really the guy that writes songs, or maybe that's okay if I never write a song again?
Right.
And I play in that sort of like uncertainty and unknowing, and then eventually I'll be like, no, I need to write a song now.
Yeah.
There's something
Yeah.
there's something I need to sing about, and I need to get it out. So that's where I'm at right now. But that's all the band was ever to me. I mean, now it's just me running the band and writing the albums and recording them, so
Right.
Right.
Yeah. Well, that's what I feel like this new record in particular, like, there are a lot of bands like, you mentioned a couple that are favorites of mine, like Brand New, Taking Back Sunday, stuff like that. Like, I feel like Taking Back Sunday is almost kind of stuck in that like old school sort of album cycle of like, well, we just got to keep making shit. And there's not a lot of it that I super relate to, but I feel like specifically with this new album, you were kind of tapping into this sort of anger and frustration that was like super relatable as someone, that
As a fellow rage boy.
yeah,
you're saying?
yeah. Well, I'm
Well
mostly
said,
a sad
Josh.
boy, but
true.
I'm a rage boy every now
But
and
you
then.
have your moments.
And it felt like it was like these were songs that like you needed to get out, and it was something that was like super relatable to me.
Yeah, I was I don't know if you ever watched that Adam Curtis documentary, Can't Get You Out of My Head. It's like a documentary series. It's really artfully done, but it's about culture in the West and collectivism versus individualism and how culture has failed in the West with our individualism, and that it's so convoluted now. It's like really hard, like art, like we don't coalesce as a culture around.
No. Yeah,
art.
we all sequester in corners, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
everyone's
That's
atomized and they're in their little bubbles, and no one can really capture the feeling of right now, is what he said.
Right.
Nobody can capture the feeling of right now. So I was like, I'm gonna try. We're coming out of COVID. We're gonna come out of COVID lockdown, and like everyone's crazy. Like we've been through this like mass psychosis event,
Right.
and like, what does it feel like right now?
So you're telling me you watched that documentary and you sort of took it as a challenge? You were like, all right,
Yeah, to some extent.
you know what? You said we
raise
can't
you,
do that. I'm going to try to do it.
Well, I mean, I think that's always the goal, right? It's just a nice reminder. But like
love
that's the goal. Is like when you sit down to write a song, you're trying to capture that moment, exactly how you're feeling in that moment.
Yes.
And some people try to keep you in that feeling. They go, "Why did you say this in this song?" I was like, "I felt that then. I don't feel that now." You know,
Right. Yeah.
But you know, like, what did you mean? Like, why do you feel this way? I don't feel that way. I did 10 years ago at some point. I can't even tap into that guy anymore.
Right.
But that's the whole point, is to capture the moment.
Yes. Yes.
To capture the moment. And so that's, I mean, we all went through it. You know, all of us went through it. But what can I say from my perspective to try to embody those emotions that we all went through that we couldn't really make sense of? I mean, that's the thing of like when we're talking about going through your teenage years, you can't make sense of all these new emotions and all these new feelings and these new perspectives.
Well, and then good art gives you like a conduit to be able to like express that. That's something
Someone else feels that and has the ability to express it, and you can kind of piggyback on their on their perspective, and you go, wow, now I have their perspective, and that actually gives my perspective some depth and some explanatory value and context. And so that to me has always been the job of the artist or the creator, is to honestly express the moment so that other people can participate in that.
fucking great.
And I'm dying from COVID again. Sorry.
Even after making the album, it didn't save you.
Yeah.
You're still dying.
No, it didn't.
It came back with a vengeance
poetic.
because of that.
Yeah,
that
It's
is.
I'll
That
show
is.
you,
It's mad at me.
MacDonald. That's good. I have a pretty specific question, kind of piggybacking off that on Grimmage. On Grimmage, if you will, actually.
Grimmage.
Forgive me. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like the
Grimmage
McDonald's character, Grimace. It's like Grimace's cousin, Grimmage.
The Grimmage shake.
Yep. So like every now and then y'all would do these like little like love pop songs, like so like on the new record you have Stay in Love, and then
I
it
love
reminded
that
me
song.
of Solar Powered Life on Vagabonds.
Yeah.
And they always kind of like stand out to me because like they're different, but for me they're always highlights, and like Stay in Love is one of my favorite songs from last year. So I'm curious, is that something that everyone's kind of like on board with, or is that something you kind of have to fight for, like I'm gonna put a love song in here, or like something even love song aside, it's just like a super poppy song compared to like some of the rest of the stuff y'all have done. Is that something that is just kind of get to do whatever everyone's on board with?
That's one for me, baby. That's one for me. No, no. I was thinking about this the other day. There's I think there's probably like 4 or 5 topics that I write songs about.
Can you list them from your favorite to least favorite? No.
Rank them.
There's sad boy songs that are like desperation, loneliness, addiction. Those are kind of like the sad boy songs. And then there's like nostalgia or like getting older songs. There's a lot of getting older songs.
Yeah.
And then there's like love songs, which you know, like these are things that are worth singing. Love is worth singing about. Like, how do you do it? How do I do it? I'm a sarcastic guy in real life.
Right.
I am vulnerable in songs because that's how I can tap into my vulnerability.
Yeah.
But like, it's really hard to write a sincere love song. It's extremely vulnerable. And so all of the love songs I've written have been a little cheeky, a little tongue in cheek, a little sarcastic, a little swaggery. But you still got to write them, I think. right?
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
If you experience love in your life, don't you have to write about it? So
Yeah.
it's not always.
My wife calls it music Kylan because I'm really bad at expressing myself day to day. And then I'll just like hole up and I'll write like 4 songs. And she's like, "Oh, now I understand how you feel." Like, thank you, music Kylan.
Yes. No, it's true. It's like it's a way to get the part of you that you were told to hide in some way, or you got the message that you needed to hide to protect yourself. And you got that message young, and that part of you is like bottled up in there and needs to get out. It's funny because I have friends who are like, I have a friend like who's a really good songwriter who's like pretty nervous and like anxious in real life and like soft and tender and like emotional. And then he writes these just insanely swagger songs like this like I am a badass,
Cool,
and I will kill you songs. And I'm like, dude, how do you? It's like the little thing bottled up inside of him is like this tough guy that he wants to be or something. He has to like tap into it for his music. But that's what you find is like some of the most like hardcore bands are made of the most like soft, timid souls.
Yeah, I think about that all the time. Of like, you think of like a bunch of hardcore bands, or you think of even like some of the biggest, like most swagger ridden rock bands of all time, and really like, if you like really get into music, like you're just a nerd. Like everybody's just kind of a nerd.
Yeah.
Like everyone you
It's
think
true.
is like so cool is just a nerd, and I love
it's
it.
true.
I love it. It's a way that helps me, I think, connect with a lot of music.
Yeah.
Like even Mick Jagger is like such a nerd, and like
Sure.
and he's like sort of the epitome of this.
You're
like,
in the arts,
Yeah,
you're not like an MMA fighter. You're in the arts.
Yeah, you're not a cool guy.
right.
Let's just
You're
call it
doing
what it is.
creative. You're doing creative work.
Right.
You're imagining all day.
But at the same time, kind of like we were saying, like the artist's sort of role as the person that gives language or articulation to a feeling, even if it's a feeling of swagger. Like the artist can step into that persona, right? That role.
Yeah.
It's not them. It's not who they are essentially, but
Sure.
it's them getting to play a part and also offer that experience to an audience or a listener, which everybody loves.
Yeah, pumping yourself up is like part of life. It really is a sincere part of life. And like being like, okay, I've got confidence. I'm going to walk through the fire. Here we go. Like that you need that swagger, and yeah, songs help you embody it, So
Yeah. And on that topic, I'm going to take us all the way back. Sorry, Matt. I hope this isn't too whiplashy for you, but I'm going to jump all the way back to the silver chord, because I just want to say that Grave Digging and Abracadabras gave me that swagger. When I was listening to those songs, like I wasn't quite, when I first heard them, I wasn't digging in on a lyrical basis, but I was vibing. Kylan's our
Resident vibe guy.
He's a resident vibe guy.
Yeah.
But I was pulling a Kylan when I first heard these songs, and I just have to tell you, Matt, those are stone cold bops. And I will die on that hill. I will dig my own grave if anyone disagrees.
There it is.
Also,
Thank you.
well, I just have to jump in. We talked on our episode on the silver chord of Abracadabras as a title is just
10.
fucking incredible, and
No
I can't believe that no one thought of that as a title for like a horror movie or anything.
No, you said it was from.
Oh
what
no,
that
it was
show?
it was Tales from the Crypt.
Yeah,
but
there's an episode.
but there should be more art titled Abracadabras. It's just a 10 out of 10 title.
It's true.
10 out of
Well, that song was inspired by going to the Bodies exhibit at Science World in Vancouver with my
nice.
wife's family.
Awesome.
And you see, like, it's all like the inside of bodies,
Right.
these
Yeah,
cadavers, but they're like alive.
Right.
I love that because I feel like I get so much of that kind of physiology and like humanist imagery from you across your discography, Matt. And so to know that it was hitting on this one, and it was from a lived experience of you just being like, I'm gonna poke around with this idea of like the human body. I just love that because that stuff really resonates with me because I feel like you blend the sort of mythological like big story and kind of mythical stuff with the like flesh and blood with the dirt and the
you got to
elements.
ground it in reality. That's what when I did the songwriting workshops, I talked about that a bit, where like you have this overarching theme, which is like mortality in that song. You're dealing with your own mortality. You're seeing that it's going to end, and what are you doing with your time, and all the questions that brings up for you. And then, but I always say, like in a verse, you have to be specific. You have to get nouny, you know? What are you actually talking about? You can't be general in the verse. You got to bring people into this story, and you do that with nouns. That's why country music, you guys were talking about earlier, always talks about the truck and the blue jeans and the beer and the stuff. It puts you in the narrative really quickly. Yeah. And so you have to get specific. It has to be in the dirt and the mud and the things that people can touch, taste, and feel. Yeah. With your lyrics in the verse, and then you can go to the general. What is the chorus of that song? We're all the same, made of hair, bone. Yeah.
Yeah, we've talked about that a couple times, of like that idea of the songs that tend to resonate. I feel personally like with the most people are hyper specific to the point where they become universal.
Yeah, they're personal, therefore they're universal.
Yeah. Right. Because everybody can relate to it.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's like a bad horoscope or something. It's like literally everyone can relate to like any horoscope, because it's like
right.
You sometimes feel lonely and you wish people liked you more. It's like oh, they're speaking to me in my soul, but it's like no, that literally is everybody.
right. But then if you can ground that to like, here is a very specific time in which I felt lonely.
Right.
Then, that becomes like so relatable. I love that.
Or just how am I dealing with my loneliness right now?
Right.
Now, people don't usually talk about that, but if you talk about it in the song, everyone relates to it because everyone has done that.
The classic crime is murder.
But there's also larceny, in case you want to mix it up.
What is the classic crime? We didn't ask Matt that. So we're talking about Collide Records, guys.
Yeah, we are.
Our favorite sponsor. Definitely one of my favorites, because it does feel a little bit like letting the inmates run the asylum or whatever. Is we have very little oversight in the content of our ads.
That's true.
But, we're going to pivot to, they've got some really cool classic crime stuff on CollideRecords.com.
No kidding. They got a How to Be Human CD, which we talked about some tracks on that record with Matt and got some really good insight. I really think that CD is a steal. It's $7.99 right now.
It's on sale right now. Mm-hmm. A lot of their stuff. A lot of the CDs.
I know, it looks like a lot of the classic crime stuff is on sale.
I know. You can pick up anything post Tooth and Nail. If you're missing that in your CD collection, just boom. In one fell swoop from Collide Records, on sale, you could get it all. I do want to call attention to that they got some Vocal Few records as well, which is Matt and Christy's side project. So they've got some of those on vinyl as well, if you're needing to add those to your catalog.
I think you should.
And if you're a big spender, you can get the Phoenix Vinyl LP, the 10-year anniversary edition, in a sea blue, swirly tricolor.
It's a beautiful color.
And
I think it's a really great, I love, like we've talked about, when vinyl matches the aesthetic of the record. It feels like a great aesthetic for Phoenix as well.
It matches, yeah.
Yeah.
And we would be remiss if we did not mention that you can use our promo code and get a pretty sweet discount. How much is it, guys? What's the disc?
There's something even better than just going to Collide Records and buying stuff.
Yeah, Josh.
Whoa, what is it?
It's a discount code. It's a promo code.
You can save even more money.
Yeah,
that's awesome. How do I do that?
You use your fingers.
Got him.
Use your fingers
right here.
Collide. I'm gonna make a use your fingers Collide Records shirt. I'm just gonna send it to Greg.
Yeah, give it to Greg.
This is for free.
Sell it on his store.
Like sell that. This is gonna sell out.
Use your fingers.
It says Collide Records. Use your fingers.
Let's get meta. You can go and use your fingers to order a hypothetical T-shirt that says "Use your fingers" on Collide Records. No, that's not real. That doesn't exist. Go
You
and
can
buy
get some great music.
some amazing music by the Classic Crime from Glide Records by using the promo code. What is it, Kylan?
Church jams now
For 20% off on your first purchase.
So, jammers, Kylan here. We're going to interrupt the show just briefly to ask you if you like the show, or you know what, if you don't like the show, no matter what, you should go rate and review the show on iTunes. I don't fully understand how it's helpful, but it is helpful for us to get some feedback. We just got our first review of 2024.
We sure did.
Oh, it was so good.
It was. I'm not going to read it all, but you can go to our podcast page and check it out. It's a 2-star review, which is valid, right?
Better than one?
Yeah. You know what? I'll take
Lower
it.
the stars, the better, right, guys?
I think that's how it works.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think it's
sure,
like
cool.
golf.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
The coveted 1-star slot.
So get out there and give us 1 star. y'all.
Yeah.
But
Better
also,
than that.
alternatively, if you want to give us 5 stars, more
Mix
power
and
to
match.
you. Mix and
whatever
match.
you feel is appropriate.
Do whatever your heart desires. Just let us know, man. Because the biggest thing is it's really fun for me to get feedback on how you feel about the show. So we would love any and all reviews, ratings on iTunes.
And the best part is it takes 2-3 seconds, Get on.
As
just tap-
evidenced
tap
by our
the
2-star
stars.
review.
Yeah.
Because they didn't spend much time.
Yeah, you can just tap the stars if you don't want to leave a review, or if you want to type something out, even better. But yeah, if you can give us ratings and reviews, Spotify and Apple, great. We love it.
I want to get a little more kind of granular about this, about songwriting in particular, because one thing from everyone that I feel like in my life that is a big Classic Crime fan, the biggest thing that everyone talks about is specifically the songwriting. And so if you're down, I want to get a little bit into process.
Sure.
There are so many avenues in which you can write a song, so many different ways. You can just kind of jam out till you find a melody and then write lyrics later. You can write lyrics first. I'm just curious how you sort of get into that zone.
Yeah, I've written a song any way that you can write a song,
I
where
love that.
you have a melody, you have a rhythm. I'll just sing kick snare into my voice notes. I'll have a line in my head,
Right.
that I'll keep speaking and then sing it. Or sometimes the line comes with a melody, sometimes not. Sometimes I write a whole song, then write a melody, and then I write lyrics. So it's it really is, so much of it is not, you can't systematize it, I don't think.
Right. Yeah.
You have to just be, you just have to be present for, and you have to play. You have to play like a kid. You have to be present, and then you have to be whimsical. And, sometimes I'll just be like, all right, I'm going to write a beat. So I'll just be in MIDI playing with drums, and I'll just pick a BPM and I'll just write a beat.
Yeah.
And I'll be like, all right, here's a beat that I like, and it syncopates the hats this way, and it's cool, and it feels good. And then, all right, I'll just grab the bass guitar, and I'll be like, what would the bass do? What would it do?
Right.
And then build it that way. I mean, if you're bored and you don't have anything, it's really fun to start backwards. Normally you would start with acoustic guitar and a voice. What if you started with the drums?
Yep.
Right.
And that's what I did on How to Be Human. The whole record was written drums and bass first. I didn't even play guitar on a lot of the demos. Yeah, the guitars were a total afterthought, and I think it has some of the best rhythm sections.
Yeah.
Because of that. Because I was trying to be interested in writing an interesting rhythm section, as opposed to oh no, here's the vocal, here's the melody, that's what matters, just whatever for the rhythm, because it just has to support that.
Right.
Whereas if I'm focusing just on the rhythm section, then I'm like, well, it has to be interesting for me without anything else. So just working backwards sometimes. But yeah, I think it's less about a system. You have to show up, obviously. You have to show up and sit down, and that's the hardest part, is double clicking Pro Tools,
Yeah.
And taking that time and dedicating yourself to that process.
Yeah.
no matter what
You-
happens.
and you can't like now we live in a world of like just insane entertainment distractions constantly on our phones, and it's just like your brain just can't be bored anymore. And like that was so much of my songwriting as a teenager, was just there was nothing to do, and I was alone in my room, and I just had a guitar, and I was like, this is more fun than nothing.
Right.
Yeah,
You know, now there's never nothing to do.
there's so much competition
Right.
There's so much to
for your
do
energy.
for your attention, and that's
Yeah.
part of Grim Age. The theme of Grim Age is that like people are always worried about like what AI will do when like AGI or sentient AI comes. It's already rewired all of our brains. Like recommendation algorithms have changed the way we think. It's changed what we like.
Yeah.
It's changed what we desire. It's changed what we get dopamine from. Like we're already being changed by AI essentially.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And we didn't like consent to it.
Yeah, it just
It's
happened
already
to us.
hacking. It's hacking our chemistry and our biology and our, because the only incentive from these algorithms is to get more of our attention. That's literally the only incentive. So they don't consider any of the negative externalities. It's just like, oh, did they watch the app longer? Then yes, that will feed them more of that content. And it's like, it's just optimizing for extracting your attention.
Yeah.
and I love that as an artist you're trying to like call attention to that and try to break it down and try to encourage people to like maybe think about it a little bit, or at least just reckon with what's happening and
I mean, I'm not
acknowledge it.
I'm not trying to be an activist about it. I'm just noticing
Yeah, you're just sharing your experience with it, right?
that
Like you said
my
earlier.
life is worse because of
Right.
it.
Totally. Yeah.
I'm just noticing that and expressing that I'm noticing.
Completely.
And I think that's part of it too, is like you have to be aware, you have to notice things to write,
Completely.
to write songs. You can't just be floating along and just going along to get along. You have to sort of like be like, why is everybody doing that? You know?
Have some agency,
Why do we all just assume that that's the way to be?
and there's definitely themes of that coming up in little moments across Grim Age. I feel like where you're sort of investigating and being curious and trying to push back a little bit from maybe like one perspective, right? Like it's
Sure.
you're not necessarily advocating for an
No, yeah,
anarchist
I'm not.
revolution or anything like that, but it feels grounded, I guess, is my point, and I really appreciate that.
Oh, thank you.
And I really resonated with the what you run from
Ooh, yeah. that's a good
idea.
one.
Like I liked the old ways, and then I thought what you run from was like a continuation of that same
Yeah.
idea.
Mm-hmm.
And I wondered,
Wait,
if
are they
you-
back to back on the record?
No, Stay in Love is
think
right
so.
between them.
Yeah,
Oh, okay. Yeah.
yeah, you threw that
6,
love
7,
song
8.
in there
My bad.
to break it up. No, I mean, I the through line was there. It was enough. But I did really like the line. When I was young and out of place, misunderstood for giving them a taste, it always felt like my last stand.
Mhm.
I wonder if you'd be willing to speak to that, because that line stuck out to me, that sequence of lines, and I was just like, what's going on there?
Yeah, I feel like, part of being like growing up and wanting to do art for a living is like because you were like damaged in some way,
Oh, okay, yeah,
critically and emotionally damaged in some way.
Right.
And I think my personality was not understood when I was a kid. Like I was constantly in trouble. I was constantly in the office. I was constantly getting in fights. I didn't understand why everyone was against me. And like if I hadn't been socialized, like I might have just been like a career criminal or something. I don't know. Like
wow,
it's just my DNA. My DNA was very much just to be against, because the world seemed against me. And like why I picked art, like initially I wanted to be a comic book artist because I could draw. I could get visual ideas out of my head onto a paper really easily. And then I would get positive affirmation from teachers and parents and peers. And that was the first time I got positive affirmation from teachers and parents and peers. Because everything else I did was getting a negative response.
Right.
And then I learned that if you actually write a song, or you can play a song, you get a lot of positive affirmation.
Right.
So that seems like a better way to be in the world.
Yeah.
But yeah, it always did. It always felt like my last stand. I'm just putting myself into my head when I was like 7 or 8 years old. Like they're coming for me, and I have to protect myself.
Right.
I have to defend myself against them all.
So when you
'Cause the
say
world is
misunderstood
against
for
me.
giving them a taste, you're saying like showing them your true self, or just trying to show up.
I think that was
authentically.
more lashing out, like
Okay.
because I'm actually deeply sensitive. You wounded me, and I fight back. I'm
Right.
giving you a
Gotcha.
taste of how you hurt me,
Yeah.
but obviously my reaction is the thing that gets criticized, right?
Yeah.
It's not the person that throws the first stone; it's the person that throws the second one.
Fights back. Yeah. Right.
that was
Is that some Enneagram 8 energy I'm detecting?
yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. Cool. We don't have to get in the weeds with it. I just. I'm a
that's
big Enneagram nerd, so I'm
Yeah,
I'm
you
trying
are,
to-
okay.
I'm hijacking the podcast right now.
No, you're good,
to
yeah.
turn it
Welcome
into-
to-
I'm kidding.
Yeah.
Enneagram
All the non-Enneagram
Channel.
people love it when you hijack.
They love
the
it.
Enneagram.
It's their favorite thing.
I
take a
wore
music
like I
podcast.
remember I learned it like pretty good in 2015 or so, and I remember I wore all my friends out.
Same.
Yeah, because once
Yeah,
it
I'll
hits
attest to
you,
that.
then you're like, dang, this is really important for me. This is illuminated a lot in my life.
Right.
It's just literally explains every confusing situation I've ever had.
Yeah,
It
right.
literally explains it all. The
really
explanatory
does.
power is so powerful that you can't help but go to all your friends and be like, "Do you want your whole life explained to you?"
Exactly.
And most of them are like, "No, I don't.
right.
Thanks.
Yeah, yeah.
Fuck off.
Don't want
I
it.
don't want
Get out
it.
of my
I'm
face."
fine." Yeah.
Instead, I'm
I'm
gonna
like,
go
"Oh,
write a
you're
song
lost."
called "Holy
Yeah.
Water"
Right.
and talk about oneness and interconnectedness, and that's gonna be how I understand myself.
I gotta say,
Yeah,
this
exactly.
is 100% not something we need to delve into, but there is, I feel like, a evangelicalism to Enneagram pipeline.
Oh, wow.
that
yeah.
exists of like, well, fuck this, but like I still need to make sense of the world, and here's
Yeah.
a way that I can do
There's
it.
a model.
But
yeah.
also, it feels like salvation
Right?
when
yeah,
you
yeah. Oh, for
really when you really read your own mail like that.
Oh yeah.
It feels
Oh,
like
totally.
it feels like you were lost and now you're found.
Yeah.
And of course that power it's like so of course the evangelicals are going to love that. That's
For
like
sure.
another tool in the box, right?
Yeah,
Right.
right. Mastery, right? Understanding.
Yeah. Yeah. So
I mean,
I
we
get
all
it.
want that, on a human level, like that. We want to make sense of the chaos in our lives and just the craziness around us. So it makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
Y'all just
But
a
I
bunch of
really do
nerds.
love that song, "Holy Water" on How to Be Human, because I feel like it's almost like a part 2 to Abracadabras, but it's less mad,
Mhm.
almost, because like Abracadabras is like we're all the same, right? That's the chorus. But this one is every drop of holy water comes from the ocean. Like we're all connected. There's a connectivity there. That's not. There's a little less like, I guess less of an edge
That's,
in that chorus.
Yeah,
makes
everything
sense.
is that's sort of like an everything is sacred.
Yes.
Like we
Which I
divide,
love.
we say it's separate. There's
Sacred and
we have to
secular.
separate everything.
Yeah.
But really the water cycle makes holy water.
Makes sense, right? Yeah.
I
Yeah.
love
It all
it.
comes from the same place. And every atom in your body is from exploding stars billions of years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So no, that's that was definitely a post kind of I don't know, deconstruction album post. Like not like I think we stopped going to church in like 2015. And that's when I wrote most of the songs that came out on How to Be Human. So
Would you be able to speak to the album art on that album? I love the art on that one.
it's a painter named Renee Robbins, and
Okay.
I wanted something painted, and so I was hitting up this one artist because I saw that he did an album like packaging, and I loved it. It was like these really colorful leaves and everything. I was like, that's really natural and cool. And so I hit him up, and he's like, you know what? I just don't have the capacity to do that right now, but check out my friend Renee. She does really cool stuff. And so I looked up her work and I was like, hey, this painting that you have, I want to use it for an album cover. So we worked out a deal.
That's so cool.
That's
Nice.
gorgeous. And
Yeah, I love
it
it.
seems to resonate with a lot of the themes. Again, that kind of like the elemental side of things that I feel like you
Yeah.
fuse with the human grounded side of things. Like there's this.
It's like both. It's like I like it. It's like macro and micro. It's like
Yes, exactly.
you have the sort of almost like it's like astrophysics and quantum physics.
Yes.
You know how they kind of like look the same a little bit at the.
Uh huh.
This is such a
but then
TJ
you also have
conversation.
Yeah.
then you also have like this organic material. It's like the way it kind of looks like blood or goo, or
Right.
which is cool.
Yeah. It's like if Ridley Scott was going to do like a kid's book.
Yeah.
That's my feeling.
Alien for kids.
Exactly.
Yeah.
In the best way. I don't know if the other guys had questions. I just wanted to say I didn't want to dominate this conversation.
No, go
I
for
just-
it, man.
I was
Go
like
for
I
it.
was jumping
I'm just-
along the discography because
this-
there's so much to pull out of this, you know.
This is always what happens. I feel like when we have like really good interviews, is it always hits a point where the person that we're talking to and TJ like really connect on a metaphysical level, and then I forget that I'm also a co-host of the podcast and I'm just listening to a really interesting conversation.
Well, I've got plenty more ways for you to just lose yourself, Kylan, because
Okay.
I'm confused about how Matt met God in a Velvet Elvis painting that he painted himself. And I
had
would love
a-
to hear about that.
We had a joke. There's this bar downtown Seattle that we used to go to with me and a bunch of friends that we rode 50cc scooters. We were in this scooter club together. And we would always joke about stealing the Velvet Elvis paintings off the wall in this bar.
I love
But
it.
they were bolted down, and so we would be sit there drinking beer and then talking about our master plan, like how we would pull it off to steal the Velvet Elvis paintings.
Yes.
So that lyric comes up from that concept. And then there was a double entendre probably with the Rob Bell book, Velvet Elvis,
I was gonna say,
which I had read.
I was gonna ask if there was a Rob Bell reference couched.
But no, I think that line is more just about like drinking alone in a bar.
Yeah, I mean the rest of the verse is like pretty, like it goes from like very kind of like silly, punchy, funny to pretty dark, pretty fast. And
Yeah,
that's
like if
what
you
I
Which
got
also
really
if you-
evokes the feeling of like drinking alone.
Drinking alone in
Getting
a
right?
drunk.
Like that's
Yes.
yeah.
It's
getting drunk too fast because you're sad.
Yeah.
God.
Well, I feel pretty good, and then I don't feel so good anymore.
Right.
Right.
It's like I'm gonna watch all the Halloween movies, and then on Halloween 3, I'm like, what the fuck is my life?
But the chorus, the turn, the reason this song is so great, Not Done With You Yet. Sorry for those. I didn't mention the name of the song. I just jumped into the
We
story.
transitioned, yeah, into the next track.
Verse 2 is the one I'm referencing, and then it jumps and turns into the chorus, but I'm not done with you yet is the response.
Mm-hmm.
It's so powerful, man. Like, cause it goes from that place of like kind of punchy, happy, silly to very dark and very alone to hopeful, beautifully hopeful. And I wanted to share that with you and also ask, not to put you on the spot, but is that one that you still resonate with? We were talking earlier about songs that get to make it into the live show or don't, or that you still really connect with. Is that one that you would, vibe with
that
now?
doesn't. I mean, it has its like really vulnerable moments, and sometimes I don't really vibe with like sometimes the referencing of God and stuff. I sometimes I'm like, oof, did I have to be so on the nose?
Right.
Could I have been more, metaphorical than just literal? But that's exactly what I was feeling at the time, so I just didn't mind it. Yeah, I think that song has like a general appeal because regardless of how you take that lyric, I'm not done with you yet.
Exactly.
It is
more
about
just
moving forward.
the idea, right?
So
of
like life.
hope.
Well, that's the point. Is like the first line of the song is life can be senseless, I try to make sense of it. So things just don't make sense, and you have all these ups and downs, but you resolve to continue forward. I'm not done yet. I'm not done yet. I'm not done yet. And so with whatever you is, it's me in one sense. It's like life. It's the journey in another sense.
The universe.
It could be the hope for some absolute power or authority or meaning or sense of meaning in the world, like God, if you will. Right. You can insert anything you want into the you. So I think that's why it kind of has an appeal to many different people. And I always like to write songs like that, where it's like, everyone will be like, I know what the song's about. It's about this. And I'm like, yeah, it could be. It could be. But it also works this way.
Yes.
And so like people can take different things from it.
And that's again the beauty of like getting to be an artist, is you're giving that gift to others of like, I have my own interpretation of this thing that I was experiencing and capturing that moment, and also the gift keeps going, and other. But
reality is layered. Yeah, reality is layered too. So like, there is no literal reality. I mean, like reality is a harmony. You know, it's like a stack of things. And you have, like we were just talking about, you have like, atomic reality. Like you have like quantum physics, and then you have like this meso reality, which is like what we live in, which is like our medium. And then you have the big. And so you always have this metaphysical reality that you're trying to contend with. And then you have the real life that you're living, like a tiny speck in that. And then even zero in down to microscopic level, that reality. And so to me, it's like a song should have multiple layers of meaning, because reality has multiple layers of
meaning,
sense making, so you can make sense at many different layers, and your life is that rich too. You can make sense of how you're feeling at many different layers.
So
Matt, thank you so much for being on our podcast.
Yeah, no, this is such a TJ interview. I love it.
Oh yeah,
I literally just texted Josh, was like, TJ's having the best time.
It's true. Guilty.
So okay, I'm really curious then, Matt, how much on a songwriting level are these things, like these multiple layers and themes, something that you attempt to put into everything on like an intellectual level, or is this just sort of based on how you view the world? Is this just,
I think it just bubbles up.
Like kind of how you think, and this is just how it comes out?
No, I think it just bubbles up. I think you discover it. It's already
it's like
there.
You were saying, it's presence, right? You show up. It's not Machiavellian, like you said.
Right.
It's not so.
I'm not plotting and scheming and conniving. Like, to me, I mean, Stephen King wrote this book on writing, which is really good.
So good.
And it's all about writing novels, but
it's so good.
It's his nonfiction. It's really good. But he talks about how, like, you gotta throw yourself into writing in that creative space, and then you go back through and you notice the themes. Right. And then you start to bring the themes out and you highlight them. So you're almost uncovering it. Like Aaron Sprinkle told me once, a song is like a fossil. It already exists in the ground, and your job as the artist is to uncover it.
I love it. And
you might uncover some of the bones of this fossil, and you might think, oh, it's a Tyrannosaurus Rex or something. I don't know what fossil you're gonna find, but you might be wrong. You keep uncovering it, and you keep uncovering it, and you follow that trail down until you get all of the bones of the song. And you go, what does this song want to be? And you can put together a bunch of different ways, but there's only one right way. There's one way it needs to be.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so you're uncovering the song, you're uncovering the themes in the song, and you're trying to do justice. You're trying to bring what the song already is. And that, I mean, I don't know if that's true or not. That's just the right perspective, I think, to have.
Yeah.
It already knows what it is, and it's your job to put it together.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm not projecting anything of myself onto it, Right. But I'm blown away by when I write something suddenly out, like on a whim off the top of my head, and it has multiple meanings. To me makes me excited,
Yes.
And I go, oh my gosh, that's so great. And then if I change this one other lyric, that like points to that.
Yeah.
And it also is a throwback to an old song I did 7 years ago, and it all makes sense. It's like harmony. We're stacking now.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, we're stacking it up. We're making music with narrative now.
Mm-hmm.
To the extent that there is themes or multiple layers to the lyrics is because that's what gets me on. That's why I like I like that. Yeah. And I go, oh, that's what I want. I want more of that.
Yep.
So keep looking for it. Keep finding it.
Ooh.
I love it.
Wow.
I know. I keep forgetting I'm on a podcast.
Right? Yeah.
It's just so good. Yeah.
This has been Matt teaches songwriting. Thanks for joining.
Yeah.
Essentially.
Yeah.
I am here for it.
I know. It's so good. Yeah. I had something that is I can't even remember what I was going to talk about. That was really profound. I'm still like processing it as a songwriter, like trying to think about that. That's so cool.
Well, how do you songwrite?
So I'm a total vibe guy. Like I will go in. So my primary instrument is guitar.
Just a quick note that the interviewee has become the interviewer.
Yeah, right.
Let's go.
And I use it as a way to process, like kind of what you were saying of like looking back and like being able to change certain things to like build these things. I 100% do that. I have no idea what any of my songs are about until I'm done with them. And then, well, it's not that I don't have any idea. It's that I'm not able to articulate it until after the fact.
Mm-hmm.
That's all. Talking about music is all just hindsight 2020.
Right.
It's all just going, oh, I think I meant this, and then I think I meant that, I guess, because it makes sense, right?
Yeah. Well, I think about that a lot. So my wife is in graphic design, and I think her biggest skill is rationale, because she also will just like, she'll like make something that looks incredible and then be able to articulate it kind of after the fact. And I just...
And in graphic design, you're having to explain yourself to bosses and people and clients who don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah, exactly.
And then so you have to always have
better be ready.
rationale. You have to have a rationale to justify yourself.
Yeah.
But with music, it's different because like most people can't make music.
Right.
So they don't even know, like everyone has an opinion, but
it
like...
It just gets to exist without having to explain it 1,000 times over. Yeah. Kill it.
Like, why did you do that? I don't know. It's fucking...
I don't know. It sounded good.
Do you like it?
It sounded good. Yeah, exactly. Yes. Oh man. Yeah. No, I totally get it.
I wonder, Matt, do you still resonate with the song Happy Nihilist? Because I love that bridge. I just gotta tell you.
The woes?
Yeah, the why am I haunted by the metaphysical?
Oh, why am I haunted by...
Or is it literal? Yeah. The books I read used to feed my mind, have made me more blind, but the truth, I'll find it. And again, it's like that upward swing at the end. That's what I love about your songwriting.
And when you're doing songs like that, do you ever write like character songs where you're like, I'm writing this for like, or is everything very autobiographical?
No. That's a character song. That's a character song. The verses in The Way That You Are characters.
Yeah.
Anytime I use like he or she, it's usually characters.
Right.
Sure.
Not myself.
So you know what? That actually transitions into, you brought up there are quite a few songs in the Classic Crime discography that very specifically reference, drugs, addiction, things like that. And so I'm curious, like, how much of that is sort of a means to an end? Because a lot of time it feels like a shorthand for like a very specific experience, whether it was lived or not.
It was metaphorical or
yeah. And I don't know if that's a good question or not. I'm just personally curious. Fine. Like
I wouldn't ever speak. I don't think I would write about something I don't know about. I think that's like rule number one. You should always know about what you're writing about.
Right.
To some extent.
Yeah.
So yes, like I've never had like a 12-step program level drug addiction in my life.
Sure.
Yeah.
Like I've never pushed past a certain point
Right.
But there were definite periods like when my wife and I were broken up for like 8 months before we got back together when I was like 19, 20, where I did a lot of experimenting and watched a lot of sunrises, much to my horror.
Right.
So I know I'm aware of that. I'm aware of both the allure of giving up in that way and also the perspective of someone who might find themselves stuck in those places.
Yeah.
Because I definitely was stuck, but I never stay stuck. Like I always get unstuck somehow, and I think it's just genetics.
Yeah.
I think I just genetically I've stopped a lot of places on the journey that are very bad places that I shouldn't have stopped. But I never got stuck there. I never stayed there. I just got back on the train.
Yeah.
And kept moving. So no, I definitely,
Well, it feels
drugs and
like
alcohol. Sure.
Yeah. It feels like to me, like I said, shorthand seems to be the best way. Like it everything that I've connected with, it feels real. It feels like almost okay. Once again, I'm going to try to turn this into a movie podcast. Like certain directors have like very specific things, right? Like that they either reference or like techniques or whatever. Like, if you think of an Edgar Wright movie, think of like fast cuts, close-ups, things like that. And it feels like to me, specifically talking about drugs and alcohol within a classic crime song, it's almost a signifier of
this is where you are.
Yes,
This is what you're listening to.
yeah. Like this is it's a very specific perspective, and I really appreciate.
I think it is a shorthand in some ways because I think people who are into drugs and addiction are usually less risk averse than average,
right,
and more seeking of like deeper truth and knowledge.
Yeah. It feels like
a
connect to there of like that seeking thing.
So there is like, and that's just like if you get stuck in addiction, it's like what brought you there was actually a good instinct,
right?
But it was misguided to this thing that would never give you the answers, but give you the right chemical feeling that you're getting the answers from it. Yeah.
And what I love about your perspective when you do touch on that stuff is it feels so empathetic. It feels so
right. Yeah.
Like a friend, like a
it's
like
not
there's so much
finger-pointy.
solidarity in it, and so that I think that's
well. That's because I'm like I've literally been there. Like I probably have more in common with addicts than I do with anybody sober.
Yeah, who's never been there?
Like like someone who's like a teetotaling, church going type person. I have nothing really in common with them. Because they've never really been seeking. They've never really been going out and adventuring. They've been stuck, sequestered in their bubble their whole life. And someone told them, "Don't do this," and they said, "Okay, I won't." And
but
that to me is just like I don't know how to live.
That's what I so
like
appreciate though is as a songwriter, I feel like you've done a really good job of kind of bridging that gap of. Like now as someone who's like in their 30s who has been through a lot of those experiences, I'm like, oh, I fucking get that. But then also as like a 17, 18-year-old, kid playing in the youth group band, I'm like, I think I understand what he's trying to say about this, right? Like I think we talked about I think we touched on that in our Silver Chord episode of like it's incredibly
it was a
relatable.
gateway drug to get you to do drugs.
Exactly. So Matt, all I'm
Get
saying
you out of that
is
youth
like you're the reason that I've done coke. So
full
thank you.
circle. Full circle.
Josh has been uncharacteristically quiet this episode.
Yes, I think it's Josh's turn.
This interview is like on TJ's level, and I'm like how did you write this song? What did you like? So it's like I'm very much like a specifics kind of in songs, but this is very much a
Josh's are very
very cool. Yeah,
practical.
this is
right
kind of the level
brained.
that I'm at, but it's
Yeah.
like while we were talking about this interview of like and how you write songs, it's always stuck out to me like how confrontational your lyrics have been.
Ooh.
And I was listening back to some old stuff, and the lyric in Everything and Nothing stuck out to me, where it's like where they chastise me for being honest when they hide behind their pride and their porn. And there's been some other
A
stuff
little on the nose.
very on the nose. And so like obviously that was
That's
when y'all
okay.
were still on Tooth and Nail. So I'm curious if one of you've ever had lyrics that either for your first 3 records that the label was like, hey, can you change this? Or if during that time or after that time, anyone in the band has been like, hey, maybe this lyric is a little pointed, or is like, is there any pushback on your lyrics from within the band or when on the label?
No, the label never pushed back. They were just like, you can't swear because we have to ship all these to the Christian bookstore,
Right.
and so they have to be safe for the whole family, you know. But I still said whore, and my argument would have been if they said I can't say whore was read your Bible.
Checks out.
That would have been
Nice.
my argument, but nobody ever stopped me from saying anything I wanted to say. And I think sometimes my band was like, "What's the lyric there?" And I'd be like, "This is it." And they're like, "Really?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And they're okay.
They just rolled with it.
Yeah,
That's
I
cool.
never because I never like to change. Like if someone didn't like something, it made me like it more, kind of, you know.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
I get that.
You know what? I could have taken it or leave it, but now that someone doesn't like it, like there's an emotional like weight to it, and I think it's good. I think more people should not like it. Yeah,
That's good.
I got to share this with the masses so they hate.
yeah, piss everyone off.
Now I'm really committing to it. Yeah, I just wrote it
Yeah.
in a second, but now it's intentional. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
Love it.
But that also that seems like such a band guy perspective, because I always think about, for me, one of the like life-changing books for me was I read Nothing Feels Good by Andy Greenwald in like 2005, which was like an oral history of emo music. And he had this whole chapter on Jimmy Eat World. And there's this one section of that entire book that I always think about, of when he had lunch with the drummer from Jimmy Eat World and he tried to drill into him. He was just like, yeah, so like, what do you think about this song and this song? And the drummer, he's like, I think he described him as like just eating a sandwich, was like, I don't fucking know what the songs are about. I just like to play drums.
no, that guy is flat. Like that guy doesn't. He doesn't write the songs.
Yeah, he's like, I don't give a shit. Like, I just want to play drums.
He's a metronome for sure. Like
Yeah.
he's a really good drummer.
I
But
love it.
no, I mean that's the thing too. Is like people don't, even people in bands. Like my bandmates don't write lyrics. They don't know what's going on.
Right.
Right.
They find out 6 months after the record comes out what I said in the song.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
I
Like,
play
they're
in
not
several
weighing-
groups. I play drums in several groups, and I can attest to that. That like there are probably a solid, probably a half of the sets that I play. I'm like, I don't know the lyrics right now. I
Yeah.
just don't know them, and I'm a lyrics guy.
Mm-hmm.
So, just goes to show. Like,
It's very-
everybody
it's-
knows.
It's very rare though, because I think a lot of people just assume like, oh, here's a bunch of musicians. They all do the same thing, or they all understand the same stuff, or they all. But it's like no, it's like everybody comes from a like, depending on what your instrument is, that's a unique perspective. Just the path of your instrument and how
Right.
it sits in a mix and what you
Yes.
could do with it.
Yep.
Like that's a unique perspective, and then also your personal way that you play your instrument is very unique too. Like we can always find a way to communicate across that divide. Like if I'm speaking a beat, I some people might say doo doo ga doo 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 ga, and some people like boo boo ka boo boo ka, and like everybody has a language that they can kind of speak. Like this is what I want you to do, and with the hat,
Yeah, the dialects may be different, but you get there.
Yeah, everybody has a language, but like we can communicate, but we don't all see eye to eye, and we don't all know what's going on. Like
Right.
that's the cool thing about being in a band is that like you kind of trust that someone else is doing something,
Yeah.
and your ear is telling you that it's good. It all works together.
Right.
And then
I'm gonna officially dub that the Ringo effect.
Yeah,
I love that. That's great.
Ringo's
works.
great, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You just want to
True.
hang out, and make good music.
Yeah, he's just feeding positive energy to the
Yeah,
songwriters the whole time.
Truly.
And that's like so critical.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes,
exactly.
yes.
So critical.
Because if
Yeah.
you don't have that, like the whole thing can really deflate. It can,
I will say this. I've written the last 2 or 3 records for my band by myself. Like by myself. Like in
Right.
a room by myself, nobody around.
So Phoenix was the last like collaborative one.
No, I've always written everything by myself, but like
Okay.
we would get together and like work on stuff together.
right.
Right.
Back then. You know, when I was writing a song, I'd be like, okay, I got this idea. I got a verse chorus. Let's get the drums and bass on it, and then let's like push into the bridge and see what the bridge will be.
Right.
You know, that's kind of how we used to do it. But
Yep.
when you don't have anybody in a room,
It's
and I mean
such a different
anybody,
process.
like
Yeah.
it's so different because you have to wear so many hats. And if you just had, I remember I was like comping vocals one day, and my dumb friend came over, and he doesn't know anything about music, but just having him there in the back while I was comping vocals, I was just A B between 2 lines. And I'm like, I don't know what it is, but just having him there, I could kind of transfer my consciousness into his perspective, and I go, oh, it's B. But if he wasn't
Yes.
there, I'm stuck.
Yes.
I'm stuck.
Oh my god. Oh, I
Right?
so relate.
That's
so
so
relate.
yes, that's so true.
So
Completely
like
agree.
that's what being in a band is all about. And
Right.
that's just to speak to the fact that like we don't always see eye to eye, but that's the power of it. It's the magic of it because
Yes.
you get to tap into all these other people's perspectives and consciousnesses
Right.
to know what the song needs.
Right.
And if they're positive, like Ringo, then
Yeah.
it's just going to be like the whole experience is just going to be way better.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's something too, like, okay, once again, turning this into a movie podcast, like the whole auteur theory, like, doesn't really exist, right?
Doesn't
Like,
hold
like
up.
you think of these guys like
Yeah.
Christopher Nolan, Francis Ford Coppola, Martin Scorsese. It's like, yeah, like there is a specific vision, but there is so much, like, so many of those movies that like actually connect with people. You have to have collaboration, right?
Yeah, like they're not doing the lighting for their own movies. Like,
right. Yeah.
other
yeah,
people
yeah.
who know that are doing
Yeah,
it.
yeah, exactly. And yeah, that's totally my perspective. Like Josh and TJ,
Right.
you guys know that. Like as
Oh,
a
yeah.
songwriter, I'm just like, whenever we do get a chance to play together, I'm just like, well, you guys are better at these things, so I'll let
Yeah.
you do those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so hard when you're doing it just
By
by
yourself.
yourself.
In a vacuum.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
so fucking hard, and it's not impossible, right? Like it's not. It's
No, I've obviously proven that that is
Right,
possible
yeah.
for me. I'm just talking about enjoyment, personal enjoyment,
exactly
versus like pain.
Yeah. It's
But
a
then
different-
also, like, there were times when we were, you know, in 2007 or 8, when we were like working on a record, and I was like, I wish these guys would just fuck off and leave me alone because I know what I'm doing, and they're
Right,
always
yeah,
questioning me. You know,
yeah.
they're
In
always
my
thinking they know
space.
better. It's like, what?
Yeah.
Show me the last song you wrote. You didn't write any songs. Now you can come talk about
Yes,
my. Like,
yeah.
there was that emotion that was in me, you know, too, when I had to deal with them all the time and all their opinions,
right. Yeah,
which
yeah.
was sometimes
Yeah.
very painful. So,
For sure.
you know, the grass is always greener on the other side.
Exactly.
So that makes me wonder, is Alone in the City from Grim Age, is it a song about that, or is it a COVID song, or is it neither?
Hey,
Because I
all of the
love
above.
that song.
All of the above, yeah.
Sweet. Cool.
Yeah, the first verse, I think, kind of is referencing the fact that I'm writing songs alone.
Mm-hmm.
Used to be us then, but now it's just me.
Yep.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, but then it's also about being alone in a literal city.
Mm-hmm.
Which is kind of like, that was the feeling of like lockdown,
Yep.
being isolated in a city or in a neighborhood, being totally socially isolated, completely but there's people everywhere.
Yeah.
So there was that feeling too. And then there's the feeling of being truly abandoned by society, which is the homeless guy
Yeah.
at the end.
The bridge. Oh my God. I love that. I love that section. It's just like brutal, man, and beautiful. Like,
Thank you.
because I've, you know, I feel like everyone has had that experience or that interaction where they want to help someone and they find out they're actually the issue or they're the
They're-
problem.
Yeah. There's screaming. You're getting screamed at.
Yeah.
No, there was one I looked it up on my computer the other day. it was a dream I had. No, it wasn't a dream. It was a thing that actually happened on my way to work, where a guy, I could see that he was like psychotic, like, you know, rambling, ranting, walking across the street. I have my AirPods in, and he's walking straight up to me, and I'm waiting to cross. And so I was like, I'm not like afraid on the street ever, because I'm like a bigger guy, and you know, I lift weights. I can probably hurt somebody, and I probably
You can hold your
admit
own. Yeah.
that. Like, I don't
But it's
mind
good
it.
to have your wits about you.
Yeah. But so I turned my AirPods on, and he gets right in my face, and he said something like, "You probably raped people. I know you." And he's like looking in my eyes, and I was like,
Wow.
"You got the wrong guy, buddy. You got the wrong guy." And then my light changes, and so I can walk across, and he's still screaming at me, and I was like, "Have a nice day, man," you know, like that. He goes, "Hey, sorry, yeah, have a nice day too. I'm sorry."
Wow.
He's like, "I'm just mad at my dad."
Wow.
Something like that. Like, he just snapped right out of it.
Oh, man.
And I was like, "Dang, that was crazy."
The full spectrum of the human experience. folks.
Yeah.
That's wild.
15 seconds.
Yeah.
Yeah, it made me think like, man, there was probably some pretty bad abuse in his history or something,
For
you know,
sure.
something.
Yeah.
But like, you can, I've seen it happen where these people will snap right out of like their psychosis into just like a normal chill, like, "Oh, hey, how's it going?"
Yeah.
Right.
It's just wild. But anyways, yeah, no, so I think that experience inspired part of that song too.
For sure.
So when you're coming out of, so it's so interesting, like you're talking about, of just going months without touching your guitar, and you're like, I don't know if I'll ever write a song again. Once that starts, where you're like, oh, maybe I'll write a song. Like, how long does it take before you're like, oh, I have an album. Like, let's make an album, guys.
Lately it's taking a lot longer. I don't know if just time flies when you get older,
Right.
but
Yeah, I think so.
yeah.
You got a larger sample size. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
things just fly, you know.
They fly more, yeah. No, it's definitely taking longer now, and I'm unfortunately been like having to pay for my family and my life with music for so long.
Right.
It's been about 12 years since my wife just went back to work after 12 years of me having to figure out how to pay the bills with music, and part of the way I could do it was to do it like a Kickstarter and then make the album.
Right.
Right.
And so I had this like deadline. I had to go write. I had to go record. I had to. And I don't like that like imperative of like financial ruin.
Yeah. Oh, for
that
sure.
was like motivating it all, you know? Like, it was great. I was prolific. I got a lot done, but I like, it kind of like muddied the water for me a little bit.
Sure.
And my wife just went back to work, and so I don't necessarily like have to. Like, we're not gonna like starve if I don't.
Right.
So I'm just giving it a breather now, and we'll see. We'll see if like, I'm worried that I truly married the motivation to make music to my hierarchy of needs of like shelter and food.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm worried that
That's
I've already
valid.
done that, and that I won't write anything unless I have to, unless I, you know, feel like I'm gonna, you know, the bank's gonna come take my house.
Yeah. I think about that a lot. I haven't had it obviously to that extent, but I have found when my life is generally like level, I don't feel the need to like express myself musically as much. It's like, well, I mean, things are good, but
Right.
I'm also like constantly fighting that of like, well, I don't need to only use this as like a crutch, as like therapy, right? Like, I need to break out of that and try to make this fun again. So yeah, no,
The whole concept of like making it fun, or like, to me, I just never thought about it. It was just instinctual. It's
Right.
like, of course I'm gonna write a song.
Yeah,
They were
yeah.
falling out of me when I was young.
Yeah.
You know? and they aren't falling out of me now, and maybe that's okay. Like I have to truly like give it up. I have to be like, maybe I won't write another song again. That's okay.
Right.
Yeah.
It's okay if I have nothing more to say. I've said a lot of things a lot of times. Like I've said the same thing like 17 times. And some of those things, and some of those things are worth repeating. But
yes,
but it's like it's not like I have any other things to express. It's like at least I don't have like a wellspring of new things to express,
right,
or emotions. So why am I doing it? Yeah, is it just for therapy? Maybe I'm fixed. Maybe I'm healed. Maybe I don't need therapy anymore. Or maybe those songs can be my therapy now, and I don't need to keep making them over and over again, in different ways.
But my only generic pushback, not at you, but for us all and anyone out there that might consider these things, is like life is versatile and varied, and it never ceases to be different. Like the next day that you live is going to be different than the day you just lived, right? And so there's going to be newness. There's going to be something fresh that you experience, that you take away, and that you maybe can synthesize into something that you can share with someone else, right? Kind of like you talked about earlier, Matt, like the artist's job of capturing a lived experience in that moment and then sharing it with someone who maybe is going to really resonate and need that to help articulate and process their own experience.
Right.
That's my only thing, is like Dylan's still doing it. He dropped an album like 2 years ago that resonated with me.
Yeah.
And exactly. So
who?
Bob Dylan, Willie Nelson.
Oh, Willie Nelson.
These guys are still...
Willie Nelson came out with 3 albums this last year.
So if anybody can be a testament to that,
he lives in the studio.
These guys. Yeah, truly.
Well, I always just think of Toby Morrell because he's 7 years older than me.
Yeah,
he was always the old man from Emory.
Absolutely,
right?
And I always tell Toby, if you don't quit, I can't quit. But
that's right.
At the same time,
that's right.
That's like a fun, cheeky way to motivate yourself,
right?
But also, it's like just not quitting is not enough motivation. Like that concept of like, it's just the concept of like, I don't quit. I mean, that's literally been part of my motivation for years. Is I don't quit. Yeah. These other people, they quit. They give up. They get their families. They get their careers. They quit. They're quitters. I'm not a quitter.
It is kind of.
It's like a shallow motivation, but it is a motivation.
Like if that's what you have to draw from, I think it's.
Well, I needed to because it was the only thing I was good at. I wasted all my 20s and my 30s doing this.
Right.
I didn't learn other skills. I tuned my ear to obscure, less and less popular rock music, and that was what my ear was tuned to, and I could make that for the rest of my life.
Right. Yeah.
And hopefully people like it because I got no other skills.
I'm just gonna edit your earlier sentence, Matt, and say you spent your 20s and 30s. I'm gonna change from wasted. I'm just gonna edit point. We're gonna change.
Oh, did I say wasted?
You said wasted, and I could never allow that to stand on this podcast.
Yeah. Okay. So maybe it wasn't a total waste. Like, all right.
No.
Fair enough.
Not at all.
No, but it definitely. But like, I don't have any other. I don't have any other. I mean, I have a lot of other skills. I'm not saying that I don't, but as far as like technical skills, where I could just go get a job like that,
right?
Sure.
Yeah.
I don't even have the ability to like report to a boss. I don't think that's like in my ability anywhere in my body.
I get
it. So it's like homeless or this. Like that's my options.
Yeah.
There you go.
So that's really what's been motivating me. But now that Christy got a job, I don't know that I don't have that to motivate me anymore because I'm not going to be homeless. Right. So what do I do?
What do you do then? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
When I'm not going to be homeless. And I don't need to make music.
What do you do?
Maybe do I do it for fun? And like you said, TJ, that life does have new things happening. It's varied and whatever. But like when you're in my stage of life where I have a 12-year-old, a 10-year-old, and a 7-year-old, like it's pretty steady. Like they get slowly older. They go from grade to grade, but like the school schedule's the same. The sports schedule's the same. Like it's it's like new stuff doesn't happen every day. Like when they leave the house, I might have a couple albums.
I was just gonna say, like, give it 6 years,
Yeah.
and you're gonna have an amazing album.
we'll have an identity crisis, right?
Yeah.
We're like, what am I doing with my life now?
That's it.
I gotta make some music. Yeah.
I'm so excited for the next classic crime album, Identity
Empty Nesters.
Crisis.
Empty Nesters.
Identity crisis. Isn't that an old Thrice
Empty
record?
Nester.
yeah,
Is
it
it?
is.
I think that is a Thrice record. Isn't
That's
it?
great. I love that. So hey, there's something there.
Maybe your next project is just covering the Thrice album, but reevaluating
Crisis.
it.
Identity crisis, but
Yeah.
making it relevant to like
I'll
a
remix it.
That's
midlife
it.
crisis.
Yeah,
I'm
because,
sure
I mean,
I'm sure they'll like that.
Yeah,
they'll
I'm sure
love it.
would.
They will not write you
Yeah.
a cease and desist letter at
Yeah.
Dustin's probably cool with it. Yeah.
all. Totally.
I will say, I mean, I hope there's more classic crime on the horizon and stuff, but I will just praise Grim Age is that
Yes.
that record connected with me lyrically, maybe more so than, I mean, obviously I'm older, so it's going to like hit now than if it would come out when I was like a teenager, but potentially the most like one I've connected with lyrically the most, or where I listen to, I'm like, man,
For sure.
I'm getting,
Same.
it's those getting older
Yeah,
songs
yeah.
that I'm like,
Yeah,
yep,
yeah.
we are.
Lost
And-
Magic. Oh,
yeah,
my
Lost
God.
Magic, High Mileage, man. Oh,
Yes.
dang,
Yeah.
good stuff. So
It's like what? Like I'm gonna get older, and then like what?
Right.
Still write those songs? Like I
Right.
was writing. I wrote a song called "Young Again," and I just realized it. I was 27 when I wrote that song.
Yeah.
Where it's like the chorus is like, "Oh, to be young again,
when you're
to be
27,
confident and charming, and believe it never
Precious,
ends."
isn't it?
And I was 27 years old,
Oh, I know.
so I just
I
keep
love it.
doing that. And
Right.
now I'm
Yeah,
just
yeah.
I'm just still getting older,
Yeah.
and it's
I
embarrassing.
mean,
really,
it's always
it's
relevant though. Yeah.
Right.
funny.
But okay, as you know, a small sample group of like 30 something year old dudes, it is incredibly relevant
It
to
hits.
us, at least, of like
Yeah.
of that thing we were talking about earlier, of like what good art does is like give it, it gives you
It complains about getting older.
Yeah, dude. Okay, I literally have a song called "We're Getting Old." that
Great song.
I'm like,
But
it's
I
like
feel like you've
way
done
more on the
the-
nose, but
I feel like you've done, and y'all weren't totally in this boat, like, but Jimmy Eat World, emo, kind of like talking, like that kind of like lyrics and stuff like that. Where, and so it's like, you can't really be doing that into your 40s or pushing 50s, but Jim has now shifted to kind of like
Right.
life coach, where he's like, hey, these are the things that I'm learning about myself, and then like putting them in, and like turning them, and it still fits into kind of an emo song, but so it's like, I feel like you've,
well, that's what
it's
I
shifted with
appreciate
age
about
to where you're- yeah.
about like the
Yeah.
stuff, Matt, that you've been doing lately is like there were all these bands that I loved in my teens and early 20s that, they were guys a couple years older that were singing songs that like really resonated with me. And there are so few of those bands that have continued to grow, right? Like, I'll once again bringing up Taking Back Sunday. Like I'll listen to Tell All Your Friends and Where You Want to Be because I'm like super nostalgic. I'm like, I love this. But there's so few of those kinds of bands that I feel think they need to grow, right? Because like I don't want to talk shit on anybody, but it's like Newfound Glory is still, or even Blink 182, like the new Blink 182 record, I cannot stand. Like their first single is called Edging. It's like, okay, you guys are like in your 50s and you're still kind of doing the whole like, this is what 16-year-olds like, right?
I mean, it goes back to like what I said earlier. It's like you get froze where you got successful,
right?
like
yeah,
almost
yeah.
like success. It's like DJ Khaled, right? Suffering from success.
Yeah.
It's like success. It is a curse in a way, right?
Yeah.
Like you can get stuck.
Yeah.
You can really get stuck psychologically because why adapt? Why change? Why
Right.
do something new?
working.
If it's working.
If it's working.
If it's working. People want to hear that again, and so you start thinking, well, I'll give the people what they want.
Right.
Because
Yeah.
that was our best-selling record. They love
Right.
that.
Right.
It's actually better that we're not that successful because I do get to experiment more with the sound and with what I want to sing about and everything. Because
yeah, exactly.
nothing ever worked. Nothing ever worked to that level.
Right.
It like worked a little bit, and then I was like, oh, I don't want to work for that scene or whatever. I got over like I put my toes over the cliff, and I could kind of see, okay, if we went this direction, here's all the bands that are doing that are touring full time on buses. This is what their lifestyle is.
Right. This is what it looks like. Do I want
that lifestyle?
Yep.
Right.
And I said, no, I don't.
Yeah.
Why am I here and what am I doing? Oh, I want to write music that expresses something that I can't express other ways. So if I have the ability to do that, I'll do that over here and have a lifestyle that's like more fitting to what I want. And
you figured out you were going to define what success looked like for you and what meaning and purpose looked like for you in your artistic pursuits. And it was that.
Yeah, that's just you make it sound noble though. It's not. It's more just like
sorry,
it's
man.
Yeah, it's
like,
more just like I don't want to be.
And I'm an artist.
Yeah.
Is that better? Did I do it? Okay. Cool.
It's more like that. It's more like I don't want to be controlled or manipulated or middlemaned or I don't want demands put on my life and my time. I want to work when I want to work. And I want to express when I want to express, and I don't want to have to put food on a whole team of people's table, and be responsible for their lives.
Yeah, and not
that's what the touring bands are doing, by the way.
Yeah,
totally.
And
big,
not
big responsibility.
Just using this as a platform to like gas you up, but like that is the thing that has resonated with me the most of just of being able to bridge that gap between kind of what the classic crime was at this older period to like what you're doing now, without kind of completely abandoning it. Because my instinct is to like, oh, I want to try something new, fuck this band or like fuck this sound.
Yeah.
I'm trying something totally new, so I'm gonna
start fresh.
I'm gonna just clean slate.
Yeah.
And I think there's really something to be said about continuing not only the name, but just the general nature of accepting the evolution, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like,
well, I mean, the band
really
has always
cool.
just provided cover for me too, because it isn't my name. I mean, it literally is. They're my songs. I wrote them all.
Right.
But I kind of don't have to like be identified by them because it's the classic crime. It's a thing that I'm a part of, but it's not. It's not really me.
Right.
So I can kind of. It's the nice thing to be able to experiment that way and just be like, well, that's what the classic crime sounds like. Not me though.
Right.
I'm different.
Yeah.
I could surprise you.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
And I just love too that you can write an album called Grim Age in 2023 and also put a song on it called New Noise that is like so, there's definitely nostalgia in there, but there's also like a forward looking kind of quality to it and an optimism and a communal nature to it too. That's like feels anthemic.
I think I was motivated by like people coming out of the lockdowns and the pandemic and live shows starting again.
Oh, yeah.
And how like incredible it was to be in groups of like anonymous people with loud music in a room. Like that felt like something really special
to celebrate.
again.
Yeah. To point toward. Yeah, I still feel that.
Yeah.
Anytime I'm at a live show, I still think about like there was a time where we didn't know if we were going to get to do this again.
Mm-hmm.
And I love the reference to the rhythm of the kick drum. I mean that present moment that we're talking about, being together and making a new noise. Like, there's a lot to be said for being older, for being cynical, for looking back, for being like, am I done? But there's also a lot to be said for making a new noise and looking forward. And I just
here's
love
to make a new noise. Yeah.
Yeah, man. I love that you spoke to that. And I love the Rhodes in that song. That's great. That was a nice touch.
The Rhodes.
Yeah, or it might have been like a VST or something.
Yeah, like that. Yeah. I know what you're
It's
talking
so
about.
good.
Yeah.
Sweet. Okay,
Yeah.
so I think we're at a point where we're about to wrap up. Matt, this has been fucking incredible, and I'm so
Amazing.
excited
Thank you.
to
Thank you.
edit this episode because I get to listen to it all again. Is there anything, you want to tell people about? Like, you want people to listen to Grimmage, follow you on Twitter, Instagram, things like that?
They
Nah,
better
I mean,
listen to
no.
Grimmage. They
Cool.
better.
Don't
I get it.
do
it.
anything.
Don't do it.
Keep doing what you're doing. No
Okay,
plugs
well,
for me.
I'm going to plug Grimmage because it's
Yeah,
fucking awesome.
I second that.
And
thank you.
it made my top 10 list of the year.
Yeah.
I'm honored. Thank you so much. That's to beat out T-Pain.
You did beat
Ever
out
so slightly.
T-Pain.
Yeah.
Phenomenal covers album. I've watched his Twitch streams. The guy's got talent.
He
The
does.
guy
but,
oozes talent.
yeah, but so do you, man. Grimmage as someone that grew up in that sort of like mid 2000s tooth and nail
Yeah.
era, to hear a band from that time make an album in 2023 that me now as like an adult with a kid who went through the pandemic, all this stuff, an album that I can so clearly resonate with. I just so appreciate that.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, man.
Yeah.
That means something.
Here's to some new noise, Matt.
Ooh, I
Yes.
love that.
Very
'Cause
nice.
we need
Maybe.
some more of that.
Maybe.
Sweet.
But
Yeah.
also, yeah, take a beat if you need to.
Yeah,
Take
for
as
sure.
much time.
For sure.
Just show up. Be
Okay,
present.
from all of us here at CJN, may all your favorite bands stay together. Peace out.